Hey, Vic Gatta with Hellstorm. Thanks for tuning in. Super excited for the show today. I have Caroline Beckman. She is the CEO of Nouri. Caroline is incredible. One of the smartest, most thoughtful, and really hardworking entrepreneurs that I get to work with. Incredible innovator. She's 26 years old. She's on her third innovation company. Super high growth, really passionate about health. We talked through gut health and the storm and overall health. Really good show. Please tune in. Caroline, thanks for doing this. Excited to have you here on the Hellstorm.
I am so excited to be here. Congrats on this.
Thanks. So before we jump into Nouri, give some of your background. Where, I know you were in San Diego. Talk about sort of how you came to this.
Yep. So born and raised California.
Yeah.
And
Northern
California,
right?
Sacramento.
Okay, yeah.
Parents are still there, and a lot of families still there. Yeah. I went down to college, thought it was going to be just pretty standard, to be honest. Didn't know what I wanted to study. University of San Diego.
Okay.
So go down there. I'm excited, like any other freshman in college. Broadly know I want to study business. That was it. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks in, get connected with this group of entrepreneurs who were starting a cold pressed juice company.
Yeah.
So the most sort of standard yoga mom thing you could imagine was going on.
And this was sort of early in the juice craze.
Yeah, I mean, what was happening...
Looking back now, what was the juice craze?
Yeah, it was how do we get more fruits and vegetables to people?
Yeah.
And so you had Coca-Cola had Odwalla, and you had Pepsi with Naked Juice. And both were heat processed, which is not good for fruits and vegetables, and just riddled with sugar. And so this was just when consumers started to
Here's
really...
a little bit of fruit and a pile of sugar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And consumers were just starting to realize, like, that's not good. You know, sugar has the same cocaine effect, right? People are just starting to realize that.
Yeah, like when I have two boys, the pediatrician said you can't give them apple juice.
No.
Because like the processed, generic apple juice you buy in the grocery store is more sugar than a lot of other things.
And think about how many 1, 2, 3-year-olds that was just the norm.
Just
was like a bottle full of apple juice.
Right.
So anyways, we started this juice company, and I mean, again, I don't think much of it because it's a home delivery company. There's no labels on bottles. There's no way to stabilize the shelf life.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, what a cool internship.
Yeah,
it's a
you're
great
just having
product.
fun.
Yeah, I'll trade them. I'll work and I'll trade them for juice. That's what I did. Saved me a couple $100 a week on juice. And then we ended up launching it into Whole Foods. And that was when it became really cool for me because I was under the CEO. He just really took me under his wing. And
you had a title of like special projects or something
very
opaque.
Yeah, we created
Caroline's just going to do whatever
VP
to make a difference.
of special projects.
Right.
And I just started learning business. And that was when the light went off. Like, I mean, I was in my dorm room, 5 a.m., coming up with employee handbooks just because I loved it so much. I loved the business aspect of it. And so
it's interesting. You were a freshman in the business studies at University of San Diego.
Yeah.
But you also were sort of jump in the deep end and start actually building a business with the CEO.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was the best way to learn. So you're going to class, you're hearing about these things in theory, and
but then you actually apply them.
During class, I was working. So I would be sitting there and be working because I loved our work so much.
Other people are like surfing social media and you're doing work.
Yeah, or they're just trying to like hang in there from an attention standpoint in a boring accounting class because it's really hard to ever think of how you're going to use that.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like lights were going off of like, oh, we used that yesterday.
And an investor was asking about working capital and inventory 2 days ago. Yeah.
And so it was really a great way to learn. So I did that for about a year. And then the company, we had just started it, was doing like a few $100,000 in sales the first year.
Yeah.
The next year we scaled it to about 10 million. All was by hand.
Wow.
So it was all by hand, crazy amounts of work, physical labor.
I mean, just pressing the amount of juice.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds of produce every week. Yeah. So all that being said, then the next year we did almost 40 million. Yeah. So it was a really, really great.
And it scaled through the Whole Foods platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it was Target, Costco, and then out from there, Publix, Kroger, et cetera. Right. So all that said, by about 19, I knew that these advancements in consumer health, which now I've swung way more into the healthcare side of things, a lot more technical, but advancing consumer health and business, that intersection was where I wanted to spend my career. And so I'm thankful, in hindsight, a lot of times now I'm 26 and my friend group, a lot of them are trying to figure out what to do with career, what to seriously do with career. They've kind of had a couple of things.
They got out of school, they played around for a while, but now they need to.
And now they want to make more money. They want to get serious. They want to plant in a career. And it's been so, I didn't even think of it, but I'm so grateful. I haven't had to think of that. I've really just known since about 19, this is where I want to be. So
I was talking to this other guy yesterday about the idea of finding what you're really passionate about and then getting paid for it. Is incredible. It's just a gift. Not everyone ever finds that. Or you find something that you're passionate about that you can't make any money in. And
that's
so you've been
true.
At a young age, you found that you really like this intersection of health and consumer and sort of product, CPG a little bit.
I like the product side of things. I really do. And I kind of shied away from it, to be honest, over the last couple of years because I had a business that didn't work. And so I really shied away from the products and just thought there's no margin in it. And then I realized, no, I'm actually really passionate about product because it's, with the business we just launched, I can tell you to run into Whole Foods and you can go experience the product. And it's really,
and
really
the fact
special.
that you had a false start with a company after the juice company doesn't mean that all products don't work.
Exactly. And it was just immaturity in the moment of okay,
this sucks. I got to do something different.
I said, I'm doing all D2C businesses, never doing retail again. And the reality is we were just working on a product that had single digit margins, right? Great product, great brand, but just didn't have margin.
Right.
So so that's kind of how it started. So the
Suja juice, tell the end of that story.
So we
growing
ended up,
a couple 100,000, 10 million, 40 million, large distribution, and then how did it end?
Companies burning so much cash. So there was
it's
a lot
expensive to get.
And just no one knew what they were doing. No one had built a juice company before, and we had our own factories.
But the team was a fundraising machine.
Knew how to raise money. Knew how to raise money. So we get to this point where, very honestly, either we're going BK or we're selling. So, I mean, there is no
very
other...
binary.
There is no other, option. So everything looks great from the outside, but the reality is that it was do we have enough for payroll? And then Coca-Cola is coming in for an investment meeting, right? I mean, that is the reality of what's going on.
There's a lot of startups. I mean, that's probably 2/3 of the startups that have a huge success and cover of Entrepreneur Magazine. If they hadn't sold that quarter, they might have been BK.
Exactly. And you look at these businesses right now burning so much money, it's scary. So anyways, we end up having conversations with Pepsi, with Coke, with Campbell's, with a lot of different venture groups. And then we end up doing a deal that was a joint financing deal between Coca-Cola and Goldman Sachs. And so at that stage, I sort of knew, okay, I'm 21. I can sort of sneak out.
But the fun is going to change.
It's going to change. And the board was shifting a ton. And we had an awesome board who literally just had me in every board meeting for years. It was
your title and role of sort of VP of Special Projects, you could do anything. But once it got too corporate, that was going to all change.
It was going to change. And I just saw shifts in the board members specifically and who was going to have control and how it was just going to shift. And so at the time also, I was really young and I had been working 70 to 80 hours a week and I did not have good mentorship, leadership, really wisdom around me because everyone who was around me was just sort of seeing me as grind harder, grind harder, because they knew that they could get it out of me. And so I had to really assess, okay, do I want to go really fast or do I want to go really far? And I had to just shift things. And it was a great move to get out because the people that stayed the extra 3 or 4 years are so wiped out right now. I mean, they're so wiped out. And so I was thankful that I was able to adjust some things. And I mean, I made some mistakes and still,
But they were sort of your mistakes versus some corporate board.
So it was, but I'm so thankful. It was an amazing experience and has really given me confidence to now do some cool things within healthcare.
So talk about Nouri and kind of what you learned from the juice experience and the other startup, and then how that has manifested into Nouri. First of all, explain what Nouri is a little bit. I want to dig into all the details later, but just quickly, what is it and how did you come across it?
So we kind of have this cornerstone of human health in your gut, right? And it's been ignored and it's sort of invisible, right? So you don't really focus on it. It just sort of works. It's many things within healthcare and within the human body. You just kind of assume that, it's doing its job. Well,
I assume I eat food.
Yep.
And the nutrition gets absorbed.
Yep.
But how all that works,
no idea.
I'm pretty blind about.
And we've abused how we treat our bodies and our environment. And so anyways, we've got essentially this massive problem of gut health on our hands. And
as a society, really.
Yeah, as a society. I mean, we spent $136 billion in the U.S. alone. Think about this. In 2018, I think that's what 2018 stats. So probably about that in 2019, probably a little bit more. That was just to treat GI-related diseases and ailments. So that's more than we spent on heart disease, more than we spent on trauma, more than we spent on mental illness. This is
so
a
just
huge
to underline it, it's
problem.
130 billion.
36 billion. Yeah.
And then I would argue that it is comorbid, or the gut health affects other disease states too.
Well, that's it. And we have to be really careful about what we say, but the reality is
you do. I can say whatever.
Okay, there you go. So I've gotten coached now. I'm in retail world right now of all the legal crap. But no, it's a central place for disease, right?
Yeah.
Like there's been philosophers that have said thousands of years ago, disease originates in the gut.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting. So all that being said, I start to have immune issues and just I'm in my young 20s. I'm getting sick all the time. It's frustrating.
Right.
It's
and
frustrating.
You should be healthy.
Well, and I'm working on quote unquote health brands, right? So the whole juxtaposition of the thing was a mess. And so I'm getting sick all the time. I'm frustrated with that. And then you start to lose energy, right? So that starts to impact mental health because I'm someone who goes really hard. So when I'm sick, it's like, this really sucks. Yeah. So I kind of dedicated to finding this solution. And
so you just start doing research on your own.
Yeah,
for your
and
own
I'm
needs.
in the industry. So I'm just digging hard and digging left and right and figuring out everything's pointing back to gut health. Yeah. And I start to see...
And what year is this?
This is like 2016, 2016, 2017.
4 or 5 years.
And we were working on a smoothie company that had probiotics in it. So I'm starting to become really familiar with probiotics. And then I just realized, okay, 70% of the immune system. And the immune system, if you just look at it from a business standpoint, immunity is not going anywhere. It's just growing and growing and growing because we're a sicker and sicker and sicker society. Yeah. And so all that being said, if you just took that without talking about digestion, just took immunity, 70% of your immune system is in your gut. It's all originating there. And so I start to just focus on changing diet, taking really good strains of bacteria, doing these things just to tweak
in your personal life.
Yeah, and I start feeling awesome, quickly, within a couple of months. I'm like, I'm feeling great again. And so I look at it as, wow, my generation is going to need some serious help in this realm. Yeah. And so I just start to play around and start to say, okay.
And why do you say your generation? I mean, every
generation, but my generation is where I think I can have the best service, right? I think there's a...
You understand that customer profile.
Yeah, best. And I think that I've got a unique opportunity when I look at, okay, how can I help the world, right? And I start to have those kind of questions with myself. I think that I've got a unique opportunity to help people take a proactive versus a reactive approach. Mm-hmm. Because even like we did this innovation program with Target over the summer. Yeah. There's 2 different spots in the store, which is really interesting, where we could put product. And one of which is a much older demographic. And the person who shops that area of the store for gut health or digestion is coming because they have a problem.
Yeah. They have irritable syndrome.
Exactly.
Or they have something.
They've got some issue. They're coming in and it's like they're in pain, right? Yeah. That's literally and it's a different buyer. So think about the psychology. Then there's another section where it's all proactive health, and it's like
almost
young
like
moms.
next to the vitamins.
Exactly. And the protein powders and all the fitness things. And so they were asking, where would you want Nouri? And it was such an interesting conversation because I just thought, this is the difference of generation. Yeah. And so it really is, that's where I think, not just for my generation, and in fact, our consumers, a lot of them are skewed much older than I am, but I think that when we look at the brand holistically and where we can be in 10, 20 years, I think a lot of it's going to be talking to a new generation. Yeah. So, and we'll see, right? Time will tell.
Okay, great. Well, that's a good bet. I want to dig into more of that in a minute, but as you know, we were talking earlier about the health storm. So I have this idea that the U.S. healthcare system, $3.5 trillion is going to be massively disrupted in the next 3, 4, 5 years. And the imagery is like there's this big storm coming to knock shit over.
Yeah.
And
you're kind of on hurricane watch.
Yeah, right. So we're on hurricane watch. So where do we need to board up the windows?
What have you named the hurricane?
We're just the health storm. I'm not that creative. I need to get your creative
All
team
right.
working on it.
Okay.
But like, where should we evacuate people?
Yeah.
Because this segment of healthcare is just going to get flattened.
Yeah.
And where is it? It's going to be impacted, but we can recreate things and reinvigorate them. And it's going to be like all storms. It's going to come in and be really devastating. But then that sort of clears out the room for people to think, I should think about my gut health. I should be more preventative and proactive about health and not just wait till I have irritable bowel syndrome and go because I'm in crisis. And so this storm is going to be hard to push through. 12% of the U.S. workforce is in healthcare. And those jobs are going to all change around. It's very similar to changes in sort of the retail going to e-commerce, or like the steel mills going to mini mills and sort of changes. But that is sort of the downside. The upside is that innovators like yourself are going to have this wide open field to come in and make a difference.
Yeah.
And so talk about, do you see that storm coming, and in what way do you see it coming?
I love this question. It's definitely coming. I think it's already here. I think it's already like starting. If you were to use that,
it's getting kind of windy.
It's like starting to sprinkle, right? Like it's like that hurricane analogy. It's starting to sprinkle. You can see it. It's coming. I think that it's going to be really interesting because there's so much money in drug companies in healthcare that pressure has not let up. I don't feel like that's going to let up. And in fact, it's going to become this bloody war because there's so much money involved. You can't ignore the money.
And so pharma, biotech, but also hospitals and insurers and physicians, there's trillions of value, and they're going to fight to maintain.
Look at the opioid crisis, Red. Right? That's the best example. Just dig in. It's kind of crazy when you dig in.
It's kind of depressing when you dig in.
Exactly. So that's the perfect example of the pressure that has not let up, right? We have a more addicted society, not a less addicted society as we speak today. So I think where we're going to see it shift first is what I think is like the most just sort of like any industry, the most annoying or troublesome experiences are providing opportunities for innovation, like going to the doctor's office. No one likes that. So we're seeing CVS with mini clinics or minute clinics, whatever they call them, right? We're going to see those types of things. Like, I mean, I'm someone who works in healthcare. I've not been to the doctor since I left home when I was 17, 18.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's like there's so many different options. That's where I think we're going to see it first. And then we're going to see it kind of in my world where, you know, we've got the most innovative and research-focused generation of just Googling things. And it's funny because what we do with Whole Foods right now is they have this category of the store that our product's in called Whole Body. And it's essentially these natural pharmacists. That's the only way I can really explain the employees that work there. And we've been educating them because it's so powerful when consumers are now walking into a store asking for recommendations because they have X, Y, or Z.
Yeah,
and
like they come into Whole Body and say, like, I have this symptom, I have this need.
And they used to go where? To the doctor.
Go to the doctor, right.
They're not doing that as much anymore. So I think that's where we're going to see things disrupt first.
Yeah, so I've been calling that the rise of the consumer. And what I mean by that is like the individual people or the consumers are kind of rising up and taking control of their own health.
Yeah.
And even if they go to the doctor, they're bringing in their list of things that they have researched that they want advice on.
Exactly.
Or they go to Whole Foods, or they go to an urgent care center. They're no longer kind of waiting for the old guy in the white coat to tell them what to do.
Well, like my mom's a great example of this. Now, just because she's curious and she wants to stay on top of things, we have Kaiser Permanente. That's where I was born, et cetera. So back in California. So my mom
one of the better platforms in the country.
For sure. They're doing, by and large, a good job. They're trying really hard. One of the things that she does is she'll go on and email her doctor when she wants her blood taken. And she'll go to have them pull her blood, and then she'll look at all of her levels. That didn't used to happen.
Yeah, she's reviewing all her own levels
Exactly.
herself.
And then she can sort of self-diagnose. So I think that's where we're going to see it change. Where I don't think, which is this is a more troublesome and actually scarier, in my opinion, conversation. when we look at things like mental health and opioids, I don't see that shifting as much because people are so addicted. Yeah. And, like we work a lot right now on the brain and gut connection, but I will never tell you that taking an opioid versus a probiotic is going to give you the same stimulant. And that's where
it's not.
It's not.
Right.
There's things that do
but there's
help.
There's less downside.
Harm. Well,
right?
that's
less
it.
harm.
And it takes longer. Like a lot of things in life, it takes a while. The good things take a while.
Yeah.
And so when you look at like brain and gut connection and all this research between depression and anxiety, it's not going to do the same thing as a Xanax. And so it's so that I don't see changing as much, but I do see some of the experiences changing a ton really quickly.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the pharmacological solutions are important, right? But they're not a fix for everything.
No.
Right? The fact that I am not happy with my job and wish I had a different life, I don't need a Xanax.
Exactly.
Right? I need to find a new career or get in a new group of friends, but that's a behavioral health counseling
that's it.
Fix. And unfortunately, we don't have enough clinicians.
Exactly.
So I agree with you. That's a much harder problem to solve. But at the same time, part of the storm is we have to figure out as a society.
We have to figure it out.
There's no other answer.
Yeah, we have to figure it out. And you bring up a really good point because this is a huge aspect of healthcare right now is mental health. And it's not going anywhere and it's really hard to figure out.
And it's comorbid with everything. Right? If I'm depressed, I don't eat as well.
Exactly.
I don't exercise. I don't engage with other people. And so I get more depressed, but I also get overweight. And I don't manage my diabetes, or I don't manage my blood pressure.
It's a spiral effect, but I think it's the root causes. That's why when we look at Nouri just as a general brand, I forget it if the person buys a product or not. I would love them to, but it's more so a message to our generation. That's why I said my generation because now you are so quickly labeled as having anxiety or depressed, and those are really really strong labels.
Yeah,
and
they're serious. Diagnosis that you may have, and if you have them, you need to be taken care of. But we're too quick to just sort of label you as that, and then medicate you for the rest of your life.
And exactly, that's my point. And the other thing on that is that you can get better from these things. You don't have a disease that's non-reversible. These are things we can absolutely help people through. And so when we slap the label on,
we as a health system can.
Yes.
But if you are not taking your medications for the rest of your life, you're less profitable.
Exactly.
So that's where it gets to a showdown between the incumbents that have made a lot of money. You take this pill the rest of your life forever. That they sell a lot of pills.
In a perfect scenario, right? We get people on them when they need them because I am a fan of that. Yeah. I do think that people do need certain drugs at certain times.
That they're important.
They are really important to our society.
And there's no question they're overused and overprescribed.
The problem is that getting off of them. It's great in theory, but the reality is that how many people do we know that have actually just stayed on for just the dose? I mean, it's really, really tough.
Almost no one.
I'm so proud of people when I hear of hey, I was on for 3 or 4 months because I needed it and I'm off. That's I'm good for you. You don't hear those stories very often.
Well, we don't give enough support to how you would go about that.
Exactly. And so that's where I think there's big opportunity. And there's big opportunity to talk about those things and to, like I always say, speak life over people. So you might be having feelings of anxiety, but you're not going to have that forever. We can work through those things. Actually speak into someone's future versus here you go, here's the fix today.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, that's a really tough one, but
Okay, so you think the storm is kind of nearby, it's starting to sprinkle.
Absolutely.
It's not full top speed yet, but coming.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the ways that my audience doesn't run screaming from the room and never tune in again is that I think innovation is the solution.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be hard, but there are great people come up with innovative new solutions at the same time that all this carnage is going on.
It's so exciting when you look at health and wellness changing. It's so exciting. People really care about their mental health, their physical health, I mean, people are getting really, really intentional and insightful. That's exciting, because what we know is that just as bad as it is or as big of a problem, we've solved some really big problems as a humanity. Like we can solve these issues for sure. So the innovation side of things is interesting. And I think it's just completely 360, and we have to let people go and fail. We have to let, which is hard within healthcare, but we really need to let a lot of people that are really smart in many different ways go and fail, and just keep going, because there will be big solutions that come out, but it's going to...
I don't even want to categorize it as fail, right? Like,
no, it's true.
It is go and innovate.
Yeah.
And learn and iterate to the next thing quickly.
Yeah.
And that is the process.
Yep.
Right. So like, I expect that you with Nouri will try products. Some will be really incredibly successful. Yep. Some, the formulation will need to be modified.
Totally.
But what I think is really exciting is that, I'm biased. I think you're going to have the same biases. That's why I invited you to the show. But our planet has like 3 things to figure out in the next generation, right? Food, energy, and healthcare.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in healthcare because that's what I want to focus on as far as having an impact. Like, we have to figure out how to impact things. Other people are interested in energy or food and water. But I think that health is a place where we really can impact people's lives. And,
I agree.
And innovators that are trying to make a difference, 50 years ago, they may have gone into like the space race or internet technology. And now I think a lot of them will go into health.
Yeah, I think health and climate. Yeah. And like you're saying, energy.
Energy and climate are intertwined.
Exactly. Yeah, I think when I look at kind of what my generation is the most passionate about, those are the things. Yeah. Good health and well-being. And then, and then you look at climate and then equality. But really, healthcare, to your point, is exciting because it's immediate when you fix something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of when you just take one human being and their health, when you fix it, it's fixed.
I mean, so if I'm on your product.
Yeah.
If you start taking Nouri, it's probably 2 weeks. I mean, it's not that day.
Yeah.
But so what's the science?
The science is, as soon as you take it, you're starting to dose yourself essentially with good bacteria.
Yeah.
And everyone's body is very different.
That day.
No. Yeah. And most people, it actually takes like 30, 60 days, because what you're doing is you're changing kind of the construct of the bacteria in your body. And here's what we're learning. So it's essentially this good life, right? That you're indoctrinating into your body.
Yeah, it's symbiotic. You have living things in you.
Yeah.
We don't think about it a lot, but they have to be cared for.
And what we have realized is that they're wanting to feed off of something. So unfortunately now, as we've dug into gut health more and more and looked at the microbiome, et cetera, we've realized that most people's diets are so bad and their gut is not in a good shape for the bacteria to even have anything to live off of. So that's why we've seen this whole category rise called prebiotics, which all that is that's essentially fertilizer. It's fertilizer. It's food. And so, in an ideal world, there is no supplement aisle in any grocery store. You're getting fermented foods and probiotics from what you eat and prebiotics from a leafy green salad every day. But we know that's not the case. So it really depends, to answer your question, on does your body have what it needs for that bacteria to grow quickly and to really adapt and to make a difference. Some people's it's within a day, others it's usually within a month or two.
So is it fair to take a farming analogy? Like, if I have really fertile soil and I throw some seeds out there, in 10 days or 2 weeks, you'll start seeing the plant growing. And if there's not good soil, you have to sort of prepare the land before you can really grow things.
And that's what we're working on right now. Like, a lot of our innovation's all in prebiotics, because we're seeing the prebiotic market, so business side of things, right? We're seeing the prebiotic market mirror the omega market, a huge, huge market. But the reality is that it's just what we should be getting from our diets. Now we're just finding really great low dosage, like gram, 2 grams, like really low dosage ways of getting prebiotics to people. But it is. That's a great analogy. It's fertile soil.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that people complain about in the U.S. is, so the tagline is, we spend twice as much as every other country in the world and we have bad outcomes.
Yeah.
And that's like pretty well established facts.
Yep.
And what I want to talk to you about is, I think that's true. That's factual. But I think what we spend the 2x on is sick care.
Yeah.
And I think we should shift. One of the ways to innovate is to shift towards moving some of that investment into holistic well care, products like yours. So talk about that transition in your mind.
That transition is going to be a bit bloody, right? Because you're going to miss some people in between as you make that shift. There's going to be some people that are
you have to keep taking care of the six.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is like doing both is double the cost. So then we're paying 4X, right? So I think that shift is going to happen. We're seeing it happen right now through consumers' behavior and their buying habits.
Yeah, they're self-selecting. They're going into Whole Foods and they're buying Nouri.
That's right.
But the health system is still in place if they have a sick need.
Exactly. So it's shifting over. So the way that I see it is I think I'm 26 when I'm 36. So hopefully I'll have kids by then, et cetera, kind of be in that phase of life. Yeah. I think we're going to see things really shift the way that like I'll probably raise kids. It's going to be very different than the way that I was raised in the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. So that will start to shift big time over the next 5 to 10 years. That's my thought. But I don't think that we're going to see anything massively change on the institution side for a while because we've got
a generational thing.
We've got people to take care of. Right. Yeah. So it's unfortunately just where I think it would be awesome is what you're saying. Instead of sick care, you kind of swing it holistically or swing it on the preventative side. Mm-hmm. So it'd be awesome to sort of offset some of those costs for people because it's expensive. Yeah. Right? Like Nouri's $40 a month. We can cut corners and make a crappy product and it could be, 10 to 20, but we're not going to do that.
People that want to have a great product won't be happy.
Exactly. So we have to look at different ingredients and things like prebiotics are cheaper, et cetera. We can get there for people, but the reality is that it would just be awesome if it was subsidized or offset in some way, shape, or form. So I think that's where we could provide some help for people. But, there's still a lot of money to be spent on these aging generations that have not taken care of themselves.
Right. Yeah, it's probably both ends. Right? We need to take care of people, but also begin shifting folks. And I want to try to pull some of the boomers and Xers because that's, I'm there.
Yeah.
Into maybe not being as healthy as younger folks that haven't damaged their body for as many years.
Yeah.
But let's start stopping the problem and then maybe make some progress.
Absolutely.
Go on a walk or maybe take a yoga class or start with Nouri.
Yeah. I mean, just get sugar out of your diet, right? Yeah. I mean, there's some simple things but that aren't so simple, but it is encouraging. I mean, our demographic is 40, 50 years old, and it's frankly people that have the disposable income to buy it.
They're shopping at Whole Foods.
You can't
walk in Whole Foods if you're not willing to spend some money.
Whole paycheck.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's cool to see my mom and my dad and their friend group. In the way that they talk about Nouri is different, but it's great, and it's great to see that group shift because. It isn't too late. And to your point, I mean, even if you just took 60 to 70 to 80, there's huge room for opportunity in that window if you start at 60 versus 75, right? To shift some things. And so I'm with you on that. I'm passionate about having the communication, and it's not just a young millennial thing at all. It is an everyone thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I want you to talk about Nouri.
Yeah.
So for people in the audience, let's assume they don't know anything about the gut biome.
Yeah.
Give kind of a 2 to 4 minute summary of the general gut biome, what products are out there, and why Nouri was needed.
So,
why is Nouri different? So explain it, but then talk about how Nouri is different.
Yeah, so we kind of tapped on this earlier. So gut health is cornerstone. It's paramount to human health. And your immune system's there, your digestive system's there. That's what most people understand.
And I want to clarify, the digestive system, there's a lot of parts to it.
Yes.
Right, so mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine.
So where you want the bacteria.
Yeah, where is most of the gut biome?
So it's all throughout small intestine, large intestine. You really want the bacteria.
But not in the mouth, esophagus, stomach.
That's where digestion starts. Yes. Okay. And there's different aspects of it. So like your stomach acid, right? When it reaches your stomach acid, and this is something we focus big time on with Nouri, is surviving the stomach, because the stomach is so acidic, and if that stomach acid was on the table right now, it would burn through your hand. And so
its role is to like break everything apart.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And for us, and what we're looking at right now with bacteria and bacteria growth, you really want it to get through the stomach. And so when we look at kind of where there's opportunities.
So most of what we refer to the gut biome, in the small and large intestine is where most of it is. Okay.
And that's where all the research has shown us there's the biggest opportunity to impact things, right? And so that's where we want to start to work. But you got to go through a few things to get there.
Yeah, you can't get directly in there. You either you go one end to the other.
Exactly. Yeah. And so all that being said, when we look at, okay, where could we impact human health, and you look at these different strains of bacteria, that's where we got really interested in this whole thing of probiotics came about, was like there's actually good living bacteria. And for a while, culturally, it was all just like bacteria is so bad, we need to kill it all. Yeah. And so what's happened was really, I think, an under talked about aspect of antibiotic usage, which sort of destroys this gut flora or gut diversity, right? A large
in our food supply, really.
That's it. And so a large aspect of it isn't, when people think antibiotics, they're thinking, well, I haven't taken antibiotics, right? Maybe I took a couple doses when I was a child.
But you ate eggs for breakfast and chicken last night.
And you had McDonald's for dinner. Right. And the reality is that most of the antibiotics that were all approved in the 80s, most of them went into the feed supply. Yeah. So it's really just come through the last 30, 40 years really strong of antibiotic usage, and that strips away a lot of the good bacteria. So essentially, the way that I describe it
would kill all the bacteria, whether it's helpful to you, your digestion and your health or not. It just kills everything.
Exactly. It wipes it out. And again, it's like we were talking about earlier, there is a time and a place for it. There is a time and a place where you need to get a virus out of your body. And so, again, I'm not an anti-antibiotic, but we have done it too much. Too much of a good thing is not a good thing. And so all of that said, we've understood, wow, we need to get good bacteria back into people's bodies. It's kind of like we've gone too far. We need to come back. And so
there are, I don't know, 100 lesser products out there.
Yes.
And yet you thought, and just for full disclosure, I invested in Nouri as we need another one.
Yeah, it's a crowded category.
And what was your research that said that made sense, and how is Nouri different?
So delivery. So the first thing that we looked at, because again, I wasn't, to be just very honest, I wasn't inspired to enter into the probiotic category. It sounded not fun to me because there's a million of them and it's crowded, and how are we going to differentiate? Well, when we dug into the science, we realized that stomach we were talking about as a part of the gut, you really need to have a product that can survive the stomach. And so there was some early research when I was digging around that there's this unique relationship between omega oil and probiotics. And I thought, just frankly, that makes sense, right? I mean, you're taking a fatty acid and a probiotic, and so there's some interesting things that I was starting to dig up.
They fit together.
They do, and it makes sense from a market awareness standpoint. But I really have this hypothesis that if we put these together, it's going to deliver the bacteria further into the body. I didn't know how far or what it would do, but
so of the hundreds of probiotics and gut biome,
this is the only one using
no
this.
one is really attempting to push it into the intestine. They're just like give you it and hope some makes it through. Like, let's send billions
less than 1%
through the stomach,
makes
and
it
1%
through.
will make it through, but 1%.
Yeah, and then you also have to start garbage in, garbage out. So if the bacteria is not good bacteria going in, right? So there's a lot of problems on that, but the first core differentiator for Nouri's product line is the delivery. The second is clean label, which I'll get to, and that's the garbage in, garbage out comment.
Okay, but let's stick with the delivery first. Yeah. So in all your lesser competitors, they lose 90% of the good
99.
stuff. 99% gets killed in the stomach.
Yeah. So it's very, very few of the CFU, that the crazy numbers that you see that actually make it through.
Yeah.
So what we're excited about is we're just in the final stages. We're publishing a paper. So we've worked on it for over the last year. I felt really strongly that the company, before we launch any retailer, had science, not just existing science.
Yeah, it's not just you saying this will be cool.
No, it's not just this novel thing. We actually went and ran a study in the Netherlands and funded it, et cetera.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's, a huge company, a lot of them aren't even funding their own research.
Yeah.
And here we are, a startup that's raised just a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And we managed to do it. So it's very possible. And running your own science is very important. And so what we've proven is that
so how much of yours makes it through?
double as much as anyone else's. So it's a good step. It's a good step in the right direction. And so we're going to publish that, and it shows through the stomach and then through complete digestion. Because once you make it through the stomach, the gastric acid, then there's other stress factors, we'd call them, right? So like enzymes and bile, different things that then also makes it hard for the bacteria to survive. So that aspect of Nouri is the first step of making a difference in this industry.
Yeah, and it's fairly easy to understand. Like, I don't even understand all the details, but I know if I buy Nouri, I get double the benefit.
Exactly. And, that's sort of really hard for someone like me that gets so into the weeds of it. But the reality is that's what the consumers want. Like, Target will tell you, like, that needs to be on the front of the package if you want to be successful in club or mass. So
because I don't want to sit there and read for half an hour how it all works.
No.
I want to just pull off Nouri because I know it's going to be better.
Exactly. And so as long as we have science to support it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with making people's lives easier as long as there's science to support it. So that's a huge aspect of what we're going to be doing is literally going in with all these employees and just showing them the graphs, showing them the difference.
Then, so talk about the clear labeling or like that's
clean
the
labeling.
Being honest about what's in it.
Well, that's another talk about disruption to healthcare. It's honesty.
Right.
I mean,
depressingly, that is disruptive.
No, it's really disruptive.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll really talk about a bloodbath. That'll really make some things. That storm will come quick. So, all of that being said, when we look at our industry and around the grocery store, for example, the clean label, quote unquote, sweep has really made its way through almost every category now, which is awesome. And it doesn't matter if you're at Kroger or Walmart or Whole Foods. The clean label is a very, very...
I don't know if I know what clean label means exactly.
It just means that, essentially you don't have dyes and you don't have added ingredients, or that, essentially the label is quote unquote without additives or preservatives. So what I say about the clean label sweep, it's just people's awareness. It's people's attention and awareness on the problem. And that's, like I was saying, it's every consumer now. But the one category that it hadn't hit hard was the supplement category. Yeah. And when you think about probiotics... Because
they're all fake, so it's hard to be honest.
It's all snake oil. Yeah. And then when you think about probiotics, you think about how confusing a word like bifidobacterium is.
Right.
How are you going to know if that's a clean bifidobacterium or not? You're not going to know.
Right.
So to kind of get rid of the snake oil stuff, we've got to make a clean label. And again, people are going to lose money, and then some people are going to make money because there's going to be a shift. But we really believe and have worked hard with regulatory bodies to label all of the strains of bacteria right. Yeah. And then our omega oil comes from a plant, and it's completely sustainable and regenerative, in fact. So
when I think of omega oil, I think of fish oil. Yeah.
So this is a replacement for fish oil. Okay. So, and it's not an omega story. The omega oil is a supporting actor to deliver the bacteria. But you chose a sustainable source of omega. Yeah, and that's what, when we look at issues like sustainability, every company is going to have a lot of decisions, big and small. And so for us, we had a medium-sized decision, which was the sourcing of this omega. And it has become a hero of the story because we took some extra time, we spent a little bit of extra money, and we sourced something that consumers really appreciate. So when we harvest an acre of this Ahiflower, it's called, this omega oil, this plant, when we harvest 1 acre of that, it saves the lives of 320,000 sardines that would have gone to make fish oil. Yeah. So when you look at it, it's super cool. And
so as Nouri grows and you're all over the planet with people taking it, and you're a billionaire and giving money to places, you could be one of my investors.
Yep. I'll come back on
You are also saving millions and millions of fish.
Yeah. And it's cool because when you look at the sardine, right, and this has been a really a manipulation of a market, but we've been told we need fish oil, which we do need omegas, and our cells cannot produce them ourselves. But it's been pushed so hard, right? And when you look at it, the sardine, if you were to look at the ecology of a marine system, it's at the bottom. It's one of the bottom, bottom pieces.
So everything, all the other fish get impacted.
So when exactly. So when you remove that from the environment, it's just, it's these decisions are silly decisions that we've made, right? And so all that being said, sustainability is not a partisan issue. It's a participation issue.
Yeah.
And for us, it's an easy way to participate. Doing a glass bottle versus a plastic, those decisions are, in my opinion, just non-negotiables at this point.
Yeah.
So, and it has a really nice health benefit.
Yeah.
Which is the win-win.
Okay, so you have demonstrated your passion and how strong you are on the science and product and health side, but you're also kind of a badass on the business side of things. And so talk about your launch. Why did you decide to go with Whole Foods?
Yeah.
Because you were talking to a few groups. And then how has the launch gone? And talk through the data and how you think about building the business side of it.
So I love business just as much as I love healthcare.
I think of you as starting off really as a business woman first, and then you've been pulled into the health side.
I love it so much. So I've had the absolute pleasure of working with Whole Foods for 8 years now. So my career really started.
Right.
I mean, the first
the
year
juice
of my
was there.
career, I was digging into the Whole Foods portal and looking at data then and telling stories from the data then. So I feel every new product or brand is a challenge, but I did feel like that 10,000 hour rule that had hit with this type of lane.
You knew how to work with this platform.
And I'm a consumer of Whole Foods. I go there multiple times a day. I walk there when I'm on conference calls. So all that being said, I knew where we wanted to start was where we could educate people and where we could kind of let the brand have a sort of credibility to break through this $59 billion market that's really crowded. We had to get a foothold somewhere with a lot of innovation, a lot of energy and passion, and very little
money.
You're
not going to outspend your competitors.
Exactly.
So you have to be smarter and more strategic than that.
Yeah. So what exactly? So we had to capture, when a business mind goes on, it's how do I capture a demographic that's going to threaten Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Clorox, one of our big competitors, that I could do cheap. So when I think through all those things,
and
right?
that you have experience with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what strengths do I have? My weakness is that I don't have a ton of money or resource or team. Yeah. But when we looked at the other retail partners, who are all great partners, by the way, as well, but CVS we talked to Walmart, we talked to Target and worked with Target really closely, still are, Vitamin Shoppe.
And you'll probably eventually be in all these platforms, but where would you start? Was the choice to be made?
Well, and the conversation, Walmart sells more probiotics than any other retailer, right? Their conversation was,
they sell more of everything than
every other retailer. Exactly. They, the sentiment from them was, you can go in with national ads, TV ads, et cetera, like a $50 million ad budget, essentially, because they know what it takes to win there.
Yeah.
But also, I was like, no. I mean, that's literally saying, here's this startup that's just going to go right at the Procter & Gamble brand that's been there for years. That wasn't the right approach. And so the right approach was definitely to go where we could educate people. And Whole Foods, we've mentioned this a couple times in the conversation, they treat their staff extremely well, and their staff loves their jobs. And it's not rare that I will be in a conversation, yesterday it happened, where someone's been there for 5, 10, 15 years. That's not rare. It's 20 years, some people. They told me last week at a meeting, they said that every time that they come together as a group, they say, hi, my name is, I'm at whatever store, and I've been with the company for X years. Yeah. They really pride themselves in that, and that's why consumers come to this little natural pharmacy to ask for help. You don't have that at any other retailer. Yeah. And so that's why I knew that was the right alignment for our brand.
Some of those other platforms, the person is doing their job and, they're doing the best they can, but they also are clocking in and then they're going to go somewhere else. Where at Whole Foods, it's different. The attitude is much more.
We've already, since launching, and we're just a couple weeks in, we've educated over 300 of their employees, and we'll educate thousands by the end of Q2. they care. Like they care
and they'll
about.
listen to you. They'll have this kind of conversation where they're trying to understand, of these 15 things we offer, when is Nouri right?
Exactly.
And let me help my customers.
So that was a big reason. And then also just from a business standpoint, and this is important with investment too, it's just chemistry. Like when I met you guys, we talked about this, yesterday with some of your staff. When I met all of you guys, I was like, there's just a click there. And the same thing happens with buyers. And the same thing happens with retail partners. And the buyer's just awesome. She knows her stuff. We dug into data. She gave me feedback. I took it. I innovated against it.
Some things are good, but then she said, well, you could do better here.
Yeah. Or why is this? Or why is that? And so we innovated against it. We listened.
Yeah.
I just listened and humbled myself to know she knows way more than I do.
Buyer at Whole Foods.
She knows way more than I do about her category. Yeah. So listen, and then we innovated against it, and it just became this really nice relationship. It didn't feel rushed. It was it's a very rare deal that we're in. We have the whole country launching at once with Whole Foods. What's normal is that you get a region.
Right.
So normally you incubate a product, and we've had feedback on you should have just done one region. But with this category at this time, I felt very comfortable going the whole country. I mean, it's a risk, but...
Well, and you've been in other products where it's scaled quickly. So this is not the first time you're scaling fast.
Yeah, and we have a stable product, right? If it was a produce item going nationwide, it's probably not the best, but all those things...
Stable from a shelf life,
Yeah, so all those things made me feel like this was the right deal. And it's the right deal for this season of the brand. So, so we just launched nationwide. There's 3 products there. So we haven't talked about this yet.
So what are the 3 products?
So we've got the number one reason why someone comes to the probiotic category is still digestion. So our kind of hero story, it represents right now about 49% of our sales in stores, early data, is our digestive health product. And then the second one, this is the fastest growing aspect of probiotics, is a women's health product. And then the third is a pretty innovative, and this is kind of our wild one. We'll see where it ends up just because there's not a whole lot to base it off of, but it's called weight health. And it's a really fascinating product. We're seeing sales like really start to mirror the growth of the digestive health product, which is cool. But that's a clinically researched strain of bacteria that has the data behind it that shows that it reduces hip circumference, waist circumference, body mass index. So we say maintain a healthy weight, but
there's no guidance on how to do that.
Exactly. And so that conversation is just a cool one, especially when I look at like what I'm passionate about communicating. Instead of communicating things that are unsustainable, like crash diets and this fad and that fad.
Yeah, drink green tea for 4 days.
Yeah, or like, do a juice cleanse, right? I mean, how many people have, kept up with that? Not very many. And so what I like about this conversation, and specifically when we talk about the gut and how it relates to weight, which there's massive implications, it's let's build in something that's sustainable, that works for a long time, that helps you maintain this for decades, not
and it's
crash.
Foundational, right? You do this,
Exactly.
and then maybe you can add in some more leafy greens.
Exactly.
Or you can cut back on alcohol.
Yeah.
There's 100 things you could do next.
Exactly.
But let's get them feeling better. Maybe they lose a little bit of weight, and their hips are slightly
and they start
narrower,
to
and then they feel like, oh, this is exciting. I can do the next thing.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where we landed, was those 3 products to start. So all 3 of those are at Whole Foods right now. And what we're working on is, we love the gut and the brain connection. So we're working on a lot in that. We're working on a lot in sleep, because sleep is very, very, very closely related.
So these are new products
these
you
are
could
just,
roll out.
These are all things that we're just really interested in.
Yeah, and they're all intertwined, I think. So if I pick one, I'll end up getting some of the benefit across all of them.
It's really just, there are different studies that have been conducted
and different
specifically.
Particular strains.
So that's why you see all the targeting marketing within probiotics. But the reality is that, by and large, every single one is going to impact your digestive system, your immune system.
Yeah.
So we like that. We like I mentioned, prebiotics. Yeah. But it's a very fascinating business model where we completely cannonballed into the deep end with omni-channel. I feel strong about that. I feel strong.
So if this is important for the audience. Yeah. If they just have seen this and want to start buying it, can they get it online?
Yes. So they can get it online.
Where do they go to get it online?
dailynouri.com. Nouri is Nouri. So dailynouri.com. That's our website.
Yeah.
All the products are available there. They
So
are
like
on
if
Amazon.
I try it and I want to sort of have it just shipped to me every month, I can do that.
Subscription model.
But if I'm confused or I want to learn more, the Whole Foods associates, you can walk into any Whole Foods soon. It's rolling out right now, but
it's rolling out now. I would say by the time that this airs,
it'll be in every Whole
go to
Foods,
your local Whole Foods.
Or if it's not in the Whole Foods yet, we wanted to go ask about it anyway.
Exactly. So that's a good way to buy the product too. A lot of people, when they decide that they want a product like this, they want it today.
Yeah.
It's that's why CVS has a great business in so many of these OTC
I think
brands.
it's about like I want to buy it today, or I want to talk to the Whole Foods associate and learn about it and figure out which of the 3, soon to be 5, I want to buy. But then as I'm going to take it every day, now I want to shift to e-commerce.
And a lot of people like to try different ones, etc. The biggest thing, which is so hard, and I have not had the brilliant $1 billion idea on this yet, but consistency. Having the consistency of taking it will change everything.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're working super hard on. And a lot of people are within health and wellness of how do you hold people accountable to take something every day, because like these shifts we've been talking about, you have to stay consistent with them. Yeah. So that's something we're working on big time. But that's shifting psychology.
Right.
So it's a little bit harder than just
saying, and I
go.
think it's a combination of carrot and stick. Like you can hold them accountable, but you also need to give them reward and let them see the benefit. And then I'll want to do it.
That's right. So that's where we're at. It's exciting times. We're looking at a lot within, like I was mentioning, those other core areas of health. We're also looking at a lot in different life stages. One of the most, I would say, talked about, but also windows of opportunity for us is actually the first 1,000 days of life. So that's conception to year 2. So when we look at malnutrition, like Bill Gates said late last year, that probiotics, he believes, is still one of the most beneficial ways to close the gap of malnutrition. That's a big deal.
So you could have a product around, new moms and infant care.
Infant care is huge within this space. And I really think that that's a cool opportunity, because you've got moms at Whole Foods that are buying products for infant.
They want to figure out how to give their kid the best chance.
That's right. All the way to someone in a developing nation that there's some recent studies that some probiotics can prevent stunting. Really, again, early, but disclaimer.
And are you thinking about different formulations? A pill might not work for really young kids.
Usually what we're seeing right now is it's a powder format that you mix into the food. That's what we're seeing right now with infants. That's what most companies are doing. It seems to be the best way to get the infants probiotics. But it's so when I think of what's keeping me just really fascinated, it's that kind of stuff. It's the stuff of like looking at the real big picture and saying, hey, even if it's not us for any reason that does this, let's have this conversation. This is a rising tide, right? We all need to kind of play our part in it.
Nouri can be the lead. I'm sure there'll be other copycats, but Nouri will be the lead.
The category's not going anywhere. So as long as we continue to keep our word and develop great products, we're going to have customers.
Okay, so last thing. You've been doing this 8 or 9 years.
8 years.
Like that, years. So what do you know now that you wish you knew when you started off?
Well, put yourself under really good leadership, really good discernment, and it's the surrounding thing is a big deal, right? Who are you around? But who are you under has become a big focus of my life. Like I love learning from you, and I love putting myself under people that they know more than me, and just I've talked a lot
or
today,
they know
but
different things.
Exactly. Right. But being quiet and being still, and that I wish I would have known earlier, but I'm learning, right? And it's just, I think wisdom has a pace, and it's not our pace. Wisdom has a very slow pace, and that's something that I am absolutely learning. So that comes in all shapes and sizes. That comes from a science standpoint, that comes from a fundraising standpoint, from a personal health standpoint, all of those things. But I think I'm just learning, and one of the things I really wish I would have known is just that wisdom has a pace that's not Caroline's. So that's something that I'm settling into, but it's also like I think most entrepreneurs are go-getters. You run really fast.
So that's what I was going to say, is that I think that's right. And the investment side of me, like, I'm looking for people that are impatient and change agents.
For sure.
But then you also have to have the self-awareness to take feedback, like from the Whole Foods buyer or for an investor, from a scientist.
And what it looks like is like, I'm going to work 12 to 14-hour days regardless. Why don't I spend an hour of that with really smart people?
And listen and learn and work smarter as well as harder.
Because then tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll just adjust and pivot a bit for my next 12 hours because I had a dose of someone that just knows a lot more. That's what it looks like. It looks like, and it's not saying you need to stop what you're doing.
You're not slowing down.
No.
You just surround yourself by
like 19-year-old Caroline wouldn't slow down and shut up enough to just listen.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I wish I would have known. But, you know, thankfully I had good people that corrected me and pulled me aside and were like, hey, just chill for a second. You're going to have a great career.
Right.
You're going to be around great people. But listen, because this person or that person or, you know, this incredible leader wants to tell you something.
Yeah.
And that's what I think I could have done a much better job in. But
well,
I'm 26.
Right, exactly. I was going to say that's good
okay.
advice. And I think a lot of people go through their whole life and don't realize that. And so I think at 26, that's pretty good.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
Well, thanks for doing this, Caroline.
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see where Nouri goes.
I'm super excited.
My audience is going to all go buy it now, so you'll see
Whole
across the country. Yeah, Whole Foods or Nouri.
DailyNouri.com.
DailyNouri.com. So,
There you go.
Thank you,
All
Caroline.
right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.